My friends, welcome Cameron Jaymes to the show. Cameron Jaymes is a buddy of mine, a buddy of my wife's, a songwriter, writes with my wife. He's a songwriter, producer, artist, multi-instrumentalist, amazing dude. We talk biohacks and fun stuff like that all the time as well. But I wanted to have Cameron on the show because he's a wealth of knowledge and is a real world musician doing real world things here. And I think that he has information and bits here that shared with you will expand your consciousness in understanding what's going on in the music business and that sort of thing. So Cameron, welcome to the show, buddy.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's fun to be here and talk music.
Yeah, man. Cameron, would you let folks, I want them to know a bit about your history and how you got started in music and how you arrived in Nashville doing what you're doing today, which is songwriting, producing, the whole enchilada. Can you give us a brief history and brag a little, maybe? So
yeah, I'm first of all, I'll start by saying mine's a long history of, I would say, like everybody wants an overnight success story, but I'm 35 and probably just kind of hitting the sweet spot in my career, probably my favorite part of my career. But I started when I was about 15, 16 years old. Kind of had an aha moment. I was an athlete, and you do that, like, what am I going to do with my life thing, and what college am I going to go to? And I was laying in bed at night and just had this like experience where I was like, I got to make music. And I didn't play any music at that point at 15 years old. I had never taken a guitar lesson, a piano lesson. Like, I was illiterate as far as music goes. And that changed my life, really. It was very poignant. So I started, like, we had guitars and an out-of-tune piano, and I started labeling the keys and on the piano and kind of getting my hands on as many musical things as I could, and transposing songs. That was a big thing. I was like taking Beatles songs and writing them out and figuring like why my guitar, when tuned, wouldn't play along to the record. Like, I hadn't learned that part yet, but I was sort of like figuring that out and reading lyrics and rewriting them in chords. And that's really how I started. And so I would just like play coffee shops and sing the national anthem and make a fool of myself in high school. And then by kind of a stroke of luck, some family friends said, hey, our friend up the road, I'm from Northern California, our friend up the road, he's a writer and a producer, and you should meet him. And so my mom drove me, I think I didn't have a driver's license, drove me to this house in Walnut Creek, California. And this guy named Mike Busbee opened the door and welcomed me into his mom's house, and he still lived at, and said, come into my bedroom, let's talk music. And he sat in his dirty room.
What year was this?
This was probably 99. In
99. Wow. I met Busbee in, oh my gosh, much later than that.
Yeah, probably mid 2000s.
Maybe 15 years ago. Yeah. And so just to give just like maybe a one or two sentence for folks that don't know who Mike Busbee is. Can you tell about his
Busbee is a
legendary.
Yeah, Busbee, otherwise known as Busbee now. His first name is Mike, but he is a Grammy award-winning writer producer who produced and wrote songs like My Church with Maren Morris and Try by Pink, and just was one of the few writer producers that vacillated between pop in LA and country in Nashville, sort of seemingly succeeding at both and knowing the language of both, as a record producer and a writer, and had his own artistry as well. So he passed 7 months ago. So for those who follow writers and producers, they'll know that. But we lost him last year to brain cancer. So he's well loved by the communities and has quite the legacy. As a publisher, has a record label, all those kind of things. So he was my mentor. And so to backtrack through that, we sort of met through family friends. We were from the same area in Northern California, and he worked for a guy named Eric Valentine. So Eric Valentine, for those who don't know, did Smash Mouth, Third Eye Blind, Queens of the Stone Age, legendary writer producer. He's now does Grace Potter. It's his wife, and Eric is one of the best, engineer, producer, mixers ever. he'll do everything. But Busbee was sweeping floors for him in the Bay Area, and so he was this guy living in his mom's house, going, "Let me make a demo for you, and you're writing these songs, and I'll write some with you." And so we started a family friendship and really a mentorship from the time he was 22 and I was 15.
Wow.
And he moved to Los Angeles with Eric. And Eric would let us record in his studios for free, which is pretty cool when he wasn't using it. So Eric, owns still to this day one of the studios that Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder was recorded in. So these legendary studios. And so we kind of just, twisted Eric's arm as much as he'd let us to record. And fast forward, I ended up signing a record deal and a publishing deal first. So I got sort of involved with Universal Music Publishing. They had this artist development program where they had this band Mute Math, Bowling for Soup, Neo, the R&B star, was one of their first signings. So they were doing this incubation thing, and the head of Universal North America signed me to it. And Busbee and I, we had never done a deal. We were just like, I think I was 21, at this time. So 6 years of just sort of making demos and sending them out. And there's tons of amazing stories about that. Like, my name is Cameron James Breyer, but we made a demo. It was Busbee's idea to make it Cameron James. And then he put a Y in it because there was a record executive whose name was James with a Y. And he thought, if we make one demo for her, maybe it'll catch her eye, because who spells their name that way? And then it worked. And then I remember correctly, she burned a bunch of CDs and sent them around to her friends that were record label A&Rs and publishers.
Her name was spelled the way that you guys
Jaymes, yeah.
Oh,
and so it got, burned by her intern or something, and they hand wrote in Sharpie Cameron James and sent it to their friends. And so all of a sudden it just was like, it is this thing, it worked. And then all these floating copies of Cameron James. And so, true to Busbee form, we got to keep it. It's, it catches people's eyes. And so I ended up signing a publishing deal, and then Universal helped me sign a record deal with, at the time, EMI and that label system. And I kind of became, Busbee and I made our first major label album kind of thing, and with some proper funding, and it's how we got our start. And then he went on to sign with our friends Dan Huff and company, and with Crosstown Songs, which Eric, Melissa was part of the family, and so our stories kind of went that way, and so I ended up as a major an artist in the EMI system, published through Universal, all the support in the world, and music just changed, like, quite frankly. We were making records when it was like The Fray, and Maroon 5 was still kind of a 5-piece band. And I love Maroon 5, but it was that era. John Mayer, Room for Squares had just come out, and you're sort of doing this kind of pop music, the singer-songwriter, Jason Mraz and Gavin DeGraw. And then music just, I was coming into the tail end of that, and music just shifted. And it turned into, EDM started coming in. And these program tracks, and pop music was shifting. And so live instrumentation became sort of obsolete for a while, especially then. It was very intense. And I had to sort of keep reinventing myself. And I ended up kind of stuck. EMI went out of business, basically. They sold to Universal. And so there was that big 3-year merger. And I was one of the casualties of that, because if you weren't Coldplay or Katy Perry, you just couldn't really get a whole lot done. And so I just got really fed up with it. I moved to Los Angeles. I just knew I needed to be around it more.
So you were living where when this happened?
I was still living in Northern California through all of this. So at some point I knew that all of this is, a lot of what we do is relationships. And so I went, okay, there's a million talented people. How do I get more attention paid to me, even with a record deal or a publishing deal? And they all wanted me to be around all the time. So I moved to LA. And
which is really important. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because people ask all the time. They say,
people ask me that too.
On this and this, what do I do? And I'm like, jump into the deep end.
It's you can't surf from the mountains. You have to be at the beach, and then you have to get in the water, and then you have to get hit by a really huge wave and realize how big those waves are. It's easy to think you can surf from the beach while playing volleyball with your friends, but until you get in and you look up at a 6-foot wave and go, oh, that's bigger than it looks. And then you look at a 10-foot wave, and then you realize that this stuff that is global, massive music is 20-foot waves, even if they don't look that big from the shore. So you kind of got to do that. And I realized that. I realized I was sort of a big fish in a small pond in my community. I was the only guy with a record deal, and everybody thought that was cool, and chicks dig it or whatever. But at some point you're like, dude, this is not taking me to where I want to go. Yeah. And so I moved to LA, and I met my wife a couple weeks into moving there. And I kind of had this epiphany where I thought, I was playing these weekend, college shows, and kind of just barely making a living doing that. And I didn't really want to leave. I wanted to hang out with her. She worked a normal job, and I wanted to hang out on the weekends and not play gigs at small liberal arts colleges and Michigan and freeze my tail off. And so I realized I had that moment where I said, what do I love about this? Like, and I did The Voice season 2. I had this moment where I did The Voice, and that was a horribly strange and awful experience for a lot of reasons. That's a whole different podcast we can talk about. And
Sure.
hopefully my non-disclosure agreement doesn't get pinged for it. But I just had that moment where I said, what do I love about this? And I think that's an important moment. It's one thing to say, I want to do something. It's another thing to go, what do I do within that thing? And for me, it was like, every time I wrote a song, I wanted to record it. So I'd be hitting my label and Busbee going, can we go record this song? And they're going like, dude, we've recorded like whole album. Like, you got to go sell this thing. And I'd be like, no, let's record more songs. And they're like, this is not how this works. So I loved the moment the song happened and I could dream of a record. And one could not be taken from the other. I could not write a song and sort of just let it go free. I sort of had to be like dreaming what a record would sound like. And then I would dream what a record would sound like and write a song that felt like that. So I realized I loved doing that. So I started having friends in bands that needed demos made, and I needed to make a living. And so they'd pay me a couple $100 to make them a really horrible demo. And I would record them from my tiny apartment in LA. And the living room, or the dining room, was not a dining room. It was like a set of speakers and a couple of really bad USB microphones. They couldn't afford anything. And I started doing that, and my publishing deal ended. They didn't know what to do with me. I didn't want to write urban music. It wasn't real to me. I wouldn't say real to me. I just didn't live it. So I couldn't successfully write that kind of genre great. I was like a pastor's kid. I was like, I don't know the struggle. Like, I just like, I love that stuff, but I was a faking it, So Universal they let me out of my publishing deal. That was kind of horrific and scary because you don't want to lose deals. Or you don't think at the time. And then that started a journey where I just started writing and producing everything I could. I mean, if it moved, if someone wanted to record something and would pay me, I would do it. And then I learned that process, how to value myself, which I think is really important. It's one thing to be hungry and work on everything you can, but you will stay in that spot unless you understand that you teach people how to treat you. So you have to start believing that your talent and what you bring is important. And I had great mentors like Busbee that helped me with that, who kind of went like, they're trying to pay you what? No way, dude, you're worth more than that. And it's sort of a chicken or egg.
It's a beautiful 2 lessons in there. Number 1 is be hungry and don't feel like you're beneath anything to start off. And then when you start building your chops, then you start charging more and what have you. Good.
Yeah, because people, there is this psychology behind it too, where like if I'm an artist and I go to anybody, if I'm putting a band together, if I'm recording something and someone says, I say, how much are you going to charge me? And, player 1 says, $50. Player 2 says $250. Now that there's a shock to that, but it's also like, well, what's person for $250 bringing to the table that like they clearly, because we know in life that a lot of times the quality of something does come at a cost. And so there is sort of valuing yourself. It sort of creates a process of like, better clients, people that take it more seriously. So you start getting artists and that like, they understand that they know the value and they're going to push hard to try to make their money back if they spend it on you. So it kind of weeds out it slowly helps your clientele get more and more serious, where the talent levels get higher and higher. And so I did that for 6 or 7 years with no publishing deal. And had some minor successes in sort of the independent world. Songs kind of doing, when Spotify came in, songs doing 4, 5, 6 million streams kind of out of a home studio thing, and people kind of getting record deals and publishing deals. And I wasn't. I was like, I wrote that song with that kid and produced it, and he got a publishing deal and I didn't. I kind of had to go through the emotions of that. But and then as my career grew and we were stable financially, I was able to make a living. Publishing deals started coming back into the picture. So people started going like, hey, do you want another publishing deal? And we held out for a while, and then Busbee came around and said, hey, I want to sign a new publishing deal. I think you're ready to make the jump to be a record producer at the major label level and to write with artists at the major label level. He said, but I want you to move to Nashville. So, we're like 8, 9, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years into Los Angeles. And he goes, I want you to move to Nashville, which had never been in my mind. He was my mentor, but he'd go, oh, check out this Rascal Flatts song I had. And I go, cool, that's great. Look at this Keith Urban thing. Cool. That's all I knew. I grew up on Boyz II Men and Stevie Wonder. So I was like, and then I remember he played me a Lady Antebellum song he did called You Look Good. which was a number one for him. It was like this Motown sort of light thing with horns. And I went, wait, this is country music? And he had played me Mayor and stuff. I go, wait, this is country music? And I remember he said, well, country music's changing, and country music's becoming all the things that pop music doesn't want anymore, and people still want. So, you know, if you want some guitars,
that's interesting,
go listen to country music. You know, if you want singer-songwriter, go to Nashville. And so he just said, I want to sign you, but I want you to go there. I don't. He was here once a month. He lived both places, but mainly in LA. And he said, I think you should be there. And so we took a couple trips and wrote some songs, and we just fell in love with it here. And I think for me, I looked at my career and said, all right, I'm in my early 30s. Pop music changes every 10 seconds. I want to be relevant. And I grew up playing guitar and piano. Like, I grew up listening to organic instrumentation, and I felt that, you know, people in Nashville, if you caught lightning in a bottle, you could do it forever. They would let you do it. You know, we still got writers who are amazing writers who are in their 60s, and they caught lightning in a bottle, and people just know how hard that is, and they go, hey man, just write forever. So indeed. it's a talent that I think Nashville doesn't look at like age sensitive, and I love that. So we moved here, and that's sort of where I'm at now, and wrote for Busbee for my first few years for his company, and then you know, now recently I've joined up with Melissa and company and a new publishing deal at the same home.
Congrats on all that. Yeah,
very really exciting.
Cool. It sounds like you guys are in a good place for sure. I love it. That's very comprehensive, and I think that gives folks a good broad stroke about how it might happen. You know, it's like you didn't plan it, but you just kept on. You kept on. You kept on. Same what I'm doing or what anybody's doing. It's like it's all about, you know, being persistent and doing something in that field to grow, and then all of a sudden, as if magic, opportunities start happening.
And I'll say this too, real quick, on the producer side of it, because there's two cogs of that. You know, I would produce anything that would move, and one of the reasons my career has gotten to the place where it is, where I'm, you know, getting opportunity to produce major label records. I've done things with, like, from Rachel Platten and Day on the pop side to now country records I'm starting to do, and it's like a really important tool to learn is how to be a finisher. So that's something that I think Busbee taught me really well. He said there's a million talented people, but to be valuable, you have to know how to finish something. And that's a different skill set. And so doing a lot of producing even taught me how to finish something, because I knew I had something, or that I believed in what I had kind of inside of me, just from not even from a technical standpoint. It's like I just knew how important it was to me and that I could do it. But I would listen to things I finished and go, it's not it yet. Go, why is it?
And then it's as if you never did anything, because it's like you have nothing to show for it. Yeah.
And then 8 years later, you've done all these things, and all of a sudden your stuff just sounds better. And people ask you, like, you know, how did you make? And you're like, I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm doing differently. I've just done it so many times that it's like the reflex of just sort of what just happens. I don't know how. So anyway, so that's another sort of component of that story, is just like, you know, staying in the flames. I like to call it, just stay in the flames, finish stuff.
Yeah. I love that. Let me ask you this. And I'm kind of springing this on you, but if there were three things, if it's two or four, then that's fine too. I'm just trying to get the most important stuff, things that you could share with folks who are interested in making music a career, either part-time or full-time, you know, but just like actually going, okay, this is more than just a hobby. Could you give three things, whether it's even psychological or actual go out and do today type of things?
Yeah, one would be what we already discussed, which was move to a music town. Go visit Los Angeles, go visit Nashville, see which one is your style, which one represents sort of what you aspire to be in music and kind of culturally you want to be part of. There are differences in the two, an immense amount of talent. There's different ways of working even. You know, people that have gone both, it's just a different process. To write a pop song and, you know, and then to write a song in Nashville. It's just totally different. So go spend time there at both places and see what suits you. And that's a fluid thing that might change. Like myself, I fell in love with Nashville. I have no plans of ever leaving now, but I love Los Angeles still. And it deeply inspires me. So that would be one. Number two, I would say it has to be, this is a psychological thing. Music, it has to be a life or death thing. And what I mean by that is like, I have no backup plan. Like most of the people we know have no backup plans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like we come here and we go like, I'm sold out. I'm going to be in music. And what I realized about myself is what kind of got me to where I am is I just didn't let go. like that sounds crazy, but like a lot when I came into Los Angeles and I met with BMI and was trying to find anywhere to connect, I would meet peers that were at my same level. And fast forward 6-7 years, like they were all gone. And so what started happening in that group of people that were sort of my age and my place in the pecking order is that when an opportunity came, I wasn't at some point competing with as many of my peers. They were just sort of like, there was new younger people, but they were somewhere not quite where I was at. So it sort of thinned out, and it doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's sort of like, there's something to be said for not letting go. People go like, either I'm going to work with this guy or I'm not, but at some point it's going to come back to bite me if I don't, because this guy's not going anywhere. And there's a power in that. There really is. There's a power. There's staying powers, and is a lost art. So
I always say, if you don't, the day you don't make it is the day that you quit.
Exactly.
Or the day that you quit is the day you don't make it. Any other day, you're just one day closer to where it is that you're heading. But if you just like, well, I quit, and people say, oh, I didn't make it. It's like, well, no, you quit.
You quit.
I mean, we're being honest. You quit.
That's the hard part. I would say that the other
part didn't happen for you in the time that you wanted,
Yeah, and that's the other part. I would say stay fluid, right?
Yeah.
What is, is it personally be water, my friend? Is that what he said? It's like, stay fluid. It's like, did I start music thinking I would be making country music 15 years ago? No, but I love doing it. And I love being here, and I love the kind of songs I get to write here.
Right.
And I think that creatives make a mistake when they hold on to this picture. Now it's hard, you don't give up on your career, but you also have to like sort of be water. You have to sort of look at where things are leading you. You can't swim against the stream forever. You have to start finding where the stream's working for you and start taking what it gives you. And so even if that means this is different than what you thought, because I can tell you that like everybody in this business has a career that looks slightly different from the other, even writers. Like just the mechanisms and the teams and the infrastructures around writers, they're all different. And down to the publishing deals, the record deals, they all are literally negotiated one-offs. They're just like, I hear people's deals and I'm like, how did you get that? And then they hear my deal and go, how did you get that? And it's like you have to stay fluid. So if you don't, good luck. It's going to be hard, because you're going to hold on to getting through doors that will never open for you, because you're watching what other people have and you're sort of like coveting it in the wrong ways. What you should aim for is a career that uses your gifts and inspires you. It's going to be hard work, but it still feeds your soul while actually putting food on the table. And so that's the fourth thing I would say is like, the music business is a business. So like, it does not, gosh, it's so hard to say this, but the most talented people are not always the most successful. It's also understanding on some level that you have to have a sense of business savvy. Some things, the wind might blow your way, but some of the greatest creatives also really, really knew how to work a business. And so it doesn't mean you got to like be an accountant or anything like that. It just means you have to work on, I think, reading the room a bit and kind of seeing. And that's part of the staying fluid thing is like, there's politics involved. There's the human aspect, there's relationships, and it's going to be really, really hard to succeed in any form of music if you don't realize that you got to be connecting in natural ways that don't feel gross and don't turn people off, but like kind of working the room, hopefully in a non-alienating way.
Sure.
Because when people have opportunities, your name has to come to their head. Like they just got to go like, oh, I got to call Cameron. Like, and if you don't have a personal relationship, we all want to win with people we love. That's why people start creating together. Melissa and I have written a ton of songs, and it's just, she's a dear friend. Nothing would make me happier than to have a number one record with a friend rather than a stranger. So when you really think, I mean, we all want a number one record, but I'm always going to chase down, when I have an opportunity, going down my list of people that I deeply love and have chemistry and friendship and trust with, and go, let's do it with them. And that's true all across music. Let's do it with them. I love that person. So,
man, I just feel like we've just only got to scratch the surface on this. Can we do this again?
Sure.
Could you be on it? I'd love for us to do a live show with you at some point where we could have questions in real time. So, man, if that would be cool with you, we're getting ready to do a live show. So, I want to do this again because you're a wealth of information and the experience that you have and everything. So, Cameron, thank you so much for being on. I so appreciate it. Now, I know you're not as much of an online personality, but
you could just, if you just Cameron Jaymes on Instagram, Jaymes, CameronJaymes, you'll see a lot of pictures of my family and stuff, and some releases, and a little bit of the, some boomerangs of sessions and people that I write with. And same with Twitter. Twitter's the same thing. You'll see like, everything from PubMed health studies to, the state of the music business to, kind of who I am. But I think sometimes that's a little more fun than like just letting I write songs every day, is actually, getting to see who the creatives are beyond melodies and lyrics and good chords and stuff. So find me there, message me too. Like, I'd love to come on again anytime. I love doing this stuff. So I had an incredible mentor. I've said that before with Busbee, who spent a lot of time investing in the mindset of myself and other creatives. And I feel that, after his passing, it's really important to sort of like continue that legacy of like, of just, having conversation with creatives of all sorts and sharing information. See, my story is different than all of, everyone listening, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn things from each other. And it doesn't mean that what happens up here and right here is sort of the best way to go about building something great. It's not always what's in the scales and that stuff's great, but it's sort of in the mentality too. So anytime, I'd love to do a live show, and people can feel to hit me up and ask me questions. I think I was messaging with a songwriter, this girl, for like 2 hours the other night. My wife's going like, let it go. I'm going, I can't. I just got to talk to her about songwriting.
Well, we're going to take advantage of you then. If you're cool with that, I would like to have you on it.
Anytime.
So, Cameron, thank you so much, buddy. I so appreciate it very much.
We'll talk soon.
We'll see you, buddy.
All right, see ya.